welcome to the deep dive. We've collected a really fascinating, almost bewildering stack of source material today. I mean, it ranges from 19th century success sermons and ancient stoicism all the way to Plato and, modern behavioral psychology.
It's quite a mix, isn't it? But the common thread is this huge universal subject. The architecture of success, and maybe just as importantly, failure. What we're trying to do is synthesize some core principles, things about opportunity, resilience, discipline, influence, the works.
Yeah, our mission today is pretty straightforward, really. We want to offer you, the listener, a kind of shortcut to understanding the timeless mechanics behind achievement. We need to distill these fundamental ideas that guide who succeeds, how you even find opportunity, and crucially, how you handle the setbacks that, let's face it, are going to happen the moment you decide to do anything meaningful.
Okay, so where do we start unpacking all this?
Well, I think we have to begin with one of the most enduring lectures on opportunity ever given.
Ah, you mean Russell H. Conwell's Acres of Diamonds.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He supposedly gave this lecture over 6,000 times, which is just staggering.
And its power, really, is all in that central metaphor. It's designed to make you rewire how you think about success, look close, not far away.
It's such a brilliant setup. He tells this story, right, about an ancient Persian farmer, Ali Hafed.
Ali Hafed. He owns this magnificent farm, orchards, gardens, streams, everything. It seems idyllic.
Totally. But then he hears this story about someone finding immense wealth, just discovering diamonds, and Ali Hafed becomes, well, obsessed.
Right, the grass is always greener, or in this case, shinier. This obsession just consumes him.
It does. It drives him to sell everything, his beautiful farm, leaves his family, the whole lot, and he just wanders the known world looking for diamonds.
And it doesn't end well, does it? He travels until, the money's gone, he's in rags, starving.
Utterly wretched. And then, tragically, he ends up taking his own life, throwing himself into the sea off the coast of Spain. Just devastating.
But the real kicker, the moral of the story that Conwell's guide tells him, is the irony.
Oh, it's profound. The new owner of Ali Hafed's old farm, just watering his camel one day in the garden stream.
Sees a flash in the sand.
Picks it up. It's a diamond.
And the guide tells Conwell, basically, if Ali Hafed had just stayed put, if he dug in his own cellar, under his own fields, in his own garden.
He wouldn't have just found a diamond. He would have had acres of diamonds. His farm turned out to be like the site of the Golconda mines, historically some of the most spectacular diamond finds ever.
It just forces you to stop and think, doesn't it? That maybe the first step to success is realizing opportunity is probably right where you are. It's local.
Hidden in plain sight, maybe in the processes or resources you already have or the needs right around you.
And Conwell, being, a practical American lecturer, he didn't just leave it at allegory. He backed it up with these brutal, real-world examples from his own time.
Yeah, like the Pennsylvania farmer. Owned this huge piece of land.
Right, but he gets obsessed with coal oil, petroleum, which had just been discovered up in Canada.
So, like Ali Hafed, he thinks the wealth is elsewhere. He sells his farm for practically nothing.
Yeah, sells it cheap to go chasing work in Canada, a place he knows absolutely nothing about, writes to his cousin for a job.
And gets turned down. His cousin says, basically, we don't know the oil business up here either. So the farmer leaves his whole life behind without even checking his own property.
And the punchline is just devastating. The guy who bought the farm
Immediately finds oil bubbling up in the streams on the property.
And Conwell makes this point. This wasn't just any oil find. It was where they first discovered oil on the entire continent.
The original owner literally sold one of the most valuable oil fields in the country to go look for a low-wage job near some other oil field he knew nothing about.
It's hard to fathom. Or think about that other example, the Yale professor of mines and mineralogy in Massachusetts.
Oh, right. Newburyport. This guy was supposedly brilliant, teaching students advanced stuff their own instructors didn't know.
Super smart. But he gets offered a professorship $45 a week, which wasn't terrible then, but...
His pride wouldn't let him take it. He said a man with his brain couldn't possibly work for such a small sum.
So what does he do? The Ali Hafed move? Again?
Sells his homestead, decides he's off to California to find gold and silver mines, thinking his expertise guarantees success out there in some, distant, untapped place.
And the irony strikes again, even faster this time. He's barely gone.
And the new owner decides to plant some potatoes. Simple as that.
He's carrying a basket of potatoes through this narrow stone gateway on the property, and he stops.
Why? What does he see?
Right there, in the stone wall, next to the very gate where the professor had apparently sat to seal the deal.
No.
A block of native silver, 8 inches square, just sitting there.
Wait a minute. The expert in mineralogy. The guy too smart for $45 a week. He sat on tens of thousands of dollars worth of silver, an amazing find, while negotiating the sale.
Born there, grew up there, probably brushed against that stone every single day.
So the failure wasn't the environment. It wasn't Massachusetts versus California.
Exactly. It was cognitive. It was a failure of vision, maybe compounded by pride, and this persistent belief that effort applied somewhere else must yield better results.
But it raises a question for me. Does this fierce localism, this dig where you stand idea, potentially limit necessary ambition? Does it maybe keep people from seeing bigger systemic issues if they're only focused on their own backyard? Or is mastering the local the essential first step?
That's a really crucial tension, I think. Conwell might argue you need that local discipline first. You have to master what's right in front of you before you can tackle the global stuff.
Which kind of moves us from the where of opportunity to the internal mindset you need to actually seize it. And Conwell talks about this when he discusses wealth.
He does, yeah. He has that fascinating section where he almost pities the rich man's son.
Right, arguing that the father, by shielding the son from having to work, actually cripples him. He even cites statistics from Massachusetts.
Something like 16 out of 17 sons of rich men don't die rich themselves.
Because, Conwell insists, they lack the discipline that comes from honest-to-goodness work, from struggle.
When the rich father prevents the son from working, he prevents him from gaining something Conwell calls worth more than a university education. It's the discipline gained through effort. That's the real inheritance, or should be.
He uses the example of Vanderbilt's son, the elder Vanderbilt.
Yeah, who apparently understood this. Even with immense wealth available, the son reportedly told his father, "I don't want your money."
He insisted on starting at the bottom, like $3 a week.
Exactly. To gain the discipline of poor boy, he recognized the value wasn't in the cash, but in the character built by the struggle.
That internal discipline, it feels like the absolute pivot point. And, modern behavioral thinking really echoes this, doesn't it? Shifting focus from searching outside to building the internal map first.
Absolutely. It's about that internal architecture. Which leads us to ideas like the personal mission statement.
Right. Viktor Frankl's idea, which Stephen Covey talks about a lot.
Yeah.
That we don't invent our missions, we sort of detect them.
Yeah, like life is asking us the questions, and our whole life, how we live it, is our answer. It's about taking responsibility.
And that responsibility plays out in Covey's model of the two circles. This is so powerful.
The circle of concern and the circle of influence, yeah, it's a fundamental distinction.
The circle of concern is huge. It's everything we worry about but can't really control: global events, politics, far away, other people's choices.
All that stuff that drains your energy if you let it. Whereas the circle of influence is smaller, at least initially. It's the things you can directly affect.
Your habits, your attitude, how you respond to things, your work quality.
And here's the key dynamic Covey identifies. Proactive people. They pour their energy into that circle of influence.
Their energy is positive, constructive, it magnifies things.
And crucially, it causes their circle of influence to grow over time. They become more capable, more influential.
Well, reactive people do the opposite. They focus all their energy outwards on the circle of concern.
Blaming circumstances, complaining about things they can't fix.
Which leads to feeling like a victim, feeling helpless, anxious.
And their circle of influence actually shrinks because they're not investing energy in the things they can control. Covey says, if you're not the programmer of your life, you won't put the energy into writing the program. You'll just react to whatever shows up on the screen.
That idea of being proactive, of programming yourself, also drives how you tackle bad habits, right? Like the models for change.
Yeah, think about Tony Robbins' approach. It's not just about wanting to change. You need leverage. Intense leverage.
Meaning?
You have to link massive, unbearable pain to not changing right now, and simultaneously link intense pleasure to making the change immediately.
So if staying the same isn't painful enough, you just won't move?
Pretty much. You need that push-pull. The pain of staying the same has to be worse than the perceived pain or effort of changing.
Okay, so you create that leverage, that overwhelming drive. Then what?
Then you have to interrupt the pattern. The specific thoughts, feelings, or actions that keep the bad habit going break the cycle.
This intense internal focus, it also demands real clarity, doesn't it? Knowing what you're actually aiming for.
Absolutely. Which brings us out of pure psychology for a moment and into business strategy. But the principle is the same. I'm thinking of Jim Collins's hedgehog concept.
From good to great. The hedgehogs versus the foxes.
Exactly. Collins found that the companies that made that leap from just good to truly sustained greatness were like hedgehogs.
Simple, maybe a bit dowdy, but they know one big thing, and they stick to it. Their goals come from deep understanding.
Whereas the comparison companies, the ones that didn't make the leap, were like foxes. Cunning, clever, knowing many things, chasing many rabbits, but lacking that core consistency.
So the hedgehog concept is about finding that one big thing for yourself or your organization.
Right. It's the intersection of three crucial circles, three questions you have to answer truthfully. One, what can you be the absolute best in the world at? And equally important, what can't you be the best at?
Okay, brutal honesty there. What's the second circle?
What drives your economic engine? Or, for a nonprofit, your resource engine. How do you generate sustained cash flow or resources? What's your key metric?
Got it. Best in the world, economic engine. And the third.
What are you deeply passionate about? Not just interested in, but truly passionate.
And the hedgehog concept lies smack in the middle of those three, where they overlap.
That's it. It's finding that intersection. But what's really important, and something we should stress, is that this isn't usually an overnight discovery.
No. It sounds like it should be obvious.
Collins' research showed it took the good to great companies about 4 years on average. 4 years of debate, dialogue, facing brutal facts until they really nailed it down.
Wow. So it's a process of disciplined thought, not just a flash of inspiration.
Exactly. It's hard-won clarity. And once they had that concept, it drove everything.
Yeah.
Including how they use technology.
Right. The Walgreens example is fantastic for that.
Yeah. Their hedgehog concept was essentially about driving profit per customer visit through ultimate convenience. Best, most convenient drugstores.
And their tech strategy followed that.
Completely. It wasn't about chasing the latest cool gadget. Their chief information officer, interestingly, was a registered pharmacist, not a tech guru.
That says a lot, doesn't it?
It shows they saw technology purely as an accelerant for a concept they already understood deeply. The concept came first, the tech served the concept, not the other way around, which is where so many foxes go wrong.
Okay, so you build this internal architecture, the discipline, the focus on your influence, maybe you find your hedgehog clarity. What happens next?
Well, almost inevitably, you run smack into failure. You just can't aim for anything great without facing adversity.
Which is where maybe the Stoics come in handy. They had a very clear-eyed view of hardship.
Incredibly clear-eyed. Think of Seneca. He basically says, don't make your troubles heavier by complaining about them.
He argued that pain itself is often slight, right? It's our opinion about the pain that adds the suffering.
Precisely. The actual event might be minor, but our interpretation, our anxiety about what it means, that's what crushes us. He said, a man is as wretched as he has convinced himself that he is. The power lies in not convincing yourself of misery.
It's about withholding that judgment, accepting constraints, which ties into that idea that obstacles can actually be beneficial.
Yeah, the obstacle is the way perspective. Constraints force you to develop skills you might otherwise ignore. It pushes you.
Dr. Samuel Johnson had that great quote about genius.
Oh yeah, true genius is a mind of large general powers accidentally determined in some particular direction. The accident, the constraint, forces the direction. It carves the channel for the river.
And you see this play out so vividly in the lives of creative people. Kurt Vonnegut is a prime example.
Absolutely. We think of him as this iconic, successful writer, but his fame, Slaughterhouse-Five, that didn't happen until he was, 47?
Yeah, and before that, for decades, he was just struggling massively.
Supporting a huge family, his own kids, plus nephews he adopted after his sister died.
And his attempts to make money outside of writing are almost darkly comedic, like something out of one of his own novels.
Totally. Tried to sell a shirt company on a new kind of bow tie? Failed.
Developed a board game. Failed.
Opened a Saab dealership when giant American cars were king? Spectacular failure.
He even got turned down for a community college teaching job and rejected for a Guggenheim Fellowship.
A failed bow tie, a failed board game, a failed Saab dealership, 7 kids to feed.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable. And yet,
He kept writing through all of it.
that's the point. The constraints, the failures, they probably forced him to stick with the one thing he could control, the writing, even when everything else was telling him to give up. It's incredible resilience.
But failure isn't just about external circumstances like finances or career setbacks. There's the internal wreckage too, right? The shame.
Oh, absolutely. And Brené Brown's work here is just indispensable. She's really mapped out this emotional territory.
She defines shame as universal,
Right.
a basic human emotion.
Primitive, even. And she makes this really stark point. The only people who don't experience shame are those who lack the capacity for empathy and connection.
So you either feel shame sometimes, or you're basically admitting you can't connect with others emotionally. That's quite the choice.
It is. And her core definition of shame is devastatingly simple.
Mhm.
It's the fear of disconnection.
The fear that something about you, something you did or didn't do, or makes you unworthy of love, belonging, connection, that deep internal voice saying, I'm not good enough.
And this is so critical when we talk about vulnerability. People often confuse being vulnerable with using vulnerability.
What's the difference there?
Brown says using vulnerability as a tool, like oversharing strategically to get attention or manipulate a connection, she calls it using it like a floodlight. That's not real vulnerability, that's armor.
Ah, so it's performative. It's not genuine risk.
Exactly. And because it's not genuine, it actually leads to disconnection. It confirms that fear of unworthiness because you're still hiding behind a tactic instead of showing up authentically. Real vulnerability is emotional risk, exposure, uncertainty without knowing the outcome.
That feels incredibly relevant for parenting or leading any team.
Hugely. The goal isn't perfection. Brown argues that those imperfect moments, especially in parenting, are actually gifts. Kids watch us mess up, figure out what went wrong, apologize, and try to do better.
So they learn resilience and repair from our imperfections.
That's the idea. You're not trying to raise perfectly happy kids, but courageous, engaged adults who know how to handle failure and mend connections.
Okay, so how do we move beyond the grip of shame and failure? How do we work with those negative experiences internally?
Well, this brings us back to some of the psychological techniques, like actively changing how we perceive and remember things.
Like the submodalities idea from Tony Robbins. We should
Yeah.
probably define that quickly.
Sure, submodalities are just the specific sensory details your brain uses to code an experience. Think of them as the building blocks of memory.
Like how bright is the image in your mind? How loud is the sound? Is it close or far away? Moving or still? Color or black and white? That kind of thing.
Exactly those things, the texture, the feeling tone. And the technique Robbins suggests is that if you want to lessen the emotional punch of a bad memory, like a failure,
You consciously change those submodalities.
right, you take the image of the failure and you mentally make it smaller, dimmer, push it further away, maybe make it black and white or blurry, drain the negative feeling out by manipulating its structure in your mind.
And you can do the reverse for positive memories, to use them as resources.
Absolutely. Recall a time you felt successful or confident or happy. Make that image bigger, brighter, closer. Turn up the colors, the sounds, the feelings. Step into it. Amplify the positive state. It's about taking conscious control of your internal representations.
And that conscious control, that ability to manage your internal state, links directly back to proactivity, doesn't it?
It comes full circle. Back to Covey and that idea of exercising the muscles of proactivity.
His example of jogging, even when it's raining.
Yeah. The point isn't just physical health, though that's important. The deeper point is integrity.
You jog because you made a commitment to yourself based on the value of health, not because the weather is dictating your actions.
Precisely. You're acting based on value, on your chosen principles, rather than reacting to external circumstances or feelings. That decision to do the hard thing because you said you would.
That's what builds the muscle, the moral will.
That's Covey's argument. Making and keeping promises to yourself, especially when it's difficult, is the foundation of self-trust, self-esteem, and ultimately effective living. It's how you build the capacity to find those diamonds Conwell talked about.
Okay, so we've journeyed through the internal landscape, finding opportunity locally, building discipline, managing failure and shame, being proactive. Now let's shift outward. How do you take that internal mastery and actually influence the world around you?
Now we get into the realm of communication, persuasion, rhetoric. A whole different but connected ballgame.
And we have to start with Plato, really. His critique of rhetoric, especially in the Gorgias dialogue, is just so powerful.
He draws this razor-sharp line between conviction based on knowledge and conviction based purely on belief.
Explain that distinction. It sounds crucial.
Well, conviction based on knowledge, knowing something is true, means it must be true. You can't have false knowledge, by definition.
Okay.
But conviction based on belief, that can be true or false. You can believe something very strongly that just isn't accurate.
And Plato's worry was that rhetoric, especially in politics or law courts, often aimed for belief without bothering with actual knowledge.
Exactly. He saw it as a kind of flattery, like cookery, appealing to taste rather than nutrition, or cosmetics hiding flaws rather than building health. It persuaded the crowd without necessarily leading them towards truth or the good.
He felt a true rhetorician needed to be a philosopher first, to actually understand the soul they were trying to lead.
That was his high bar. Otherwise, you're just skillfully leading people, potentially in very dangerous directions, based on superficial values.
But moving beyond Plato's critique, the later Roman rhetoricians, like Quintilian and Cicero, they focused intensely on the speaker, didn't they?
Oh, hugely. On ethos. The character, the credibility, the perceived goodwill of the speaker. Quintilian said the authority of the speaker carries the greatest weight.
So it wasn't just the argument, it was who was making it.
Absolutely. They stressed that the orator, the pleader, should always seem to be acting out of duty or concern for the public good, not out of personal spite or self-interest.
Establishing that trust before you even start arguing.
And they were masters of perception. Apparently, ancient orators would sometimes even pretend to be less eloquent than they were,
Why would they do that?
to seem more trustworthy. They might act hesitant or modest, playing on the audience's tendency to sympathize with someone who seems to be struggling slightly. It makes the eventual brilliant point seem even more impressive, more authentic.
Wow. That's quite the psychological game. And Aristotle, he focused more on the structure of the argument itself, right? The logic.
Yeah, particularly on entymemes, which we should probably clarify.
It's like a shortened argument. A syllogism where one piece is implied rather than stated.
Basically, yes. It makes the argument flow faster, assumes the audience can fill in the blank. But Aristotle also warned about apparent enthymemes.
Things that look logical but aren't really.
Exactly. They might use balanced phrasing or maybe collect a series of true but separate facts and present them as if they logically lead to a specific conclusion, even if that final leap isn't actually proven.
Like that example. He saved some, he avenged others, he liberated the Greeks. 3 facts that, put together, create this powerful impression of a great hero.
Without strictly proving the great hero conclusion through logic alone. It feels like a summation, but it's rhetorically constructed. Very effective, potentially misleading.
And what about humor? Did they see a place for that in serious oratory?
They did, but cautiously. Cicero and Quintilian both said jest should be elegant, fitting for the situation and the audience.
So no cheap shots.
Definitely not. Humor shouldn't be designed to wound, and you shouldn't sacrifice your dignity or the seriousness of your purpose just to get a laugh. Wit has its place, but it shouldn't dominate or undermine the message.
Okay, so this art of communication, this is the mechanism for influence. And Conwell, circling back to him, had a very pragmatic view of how influence works in society, especially in politics.
Pragmatic is one word for it. Cynical might be another. He basically argued that the country isn't run by votes.
Not by votes. By what then?
By influence. By the ambitions, the enterprises, the powerful interests that control the votes.
He was pretty blunt with young people wanting to get into politics, wasn't he?
Very blunt. He told them, essentially, getting the right to cast just one vote is worthless, unless you can control more than one vote. Meaning true power lies in controlling the systems, the businesses, the networks that shape how other people vote. That's where the real influence resides, in his view.
That's a pretty stark view of power. Yet, we also see incredible examples of oratory being used precisely to challenge those very power structures Conwell seemed to be describing.
Absolutely. Think of Sojourner Truth at that Women's Rights Convention in 1853.
An amazing moment, facing this hostile mob, just for being black and female and daring to speak.
Yet the accounts say she stood there calm and dignified. And even though she couldn't read or write, she delivered this incredibly insightful critique.
Pointing out the hypocrisy, right? The discrimination keeping black workers out of skilled jobs. Despite all the talk of freedom, she could read people, read the situation, even if not books.
And Frederick Douglass. His speech, "What to the Slave is the 4th of July." It's just one of the most powerful pieces of rhetoric ever delivered in America.
Utterly searing. He just confronts the nation's hypocrisy head on.
Accusing Americans of boasting about liberty while simultaneously perpetuating slavery, saying they denounce foreign tyrants.
While acting as bodyguards of the tyrants of Virginia and Carolina. Comparing their tears for Hungary with their silence on the suffering of American slaves.
The sheer force of articulating that contradiction, that's the kind of rhetoric that fuels real systemic moral change. It exposes the gap between professed values and reality.
So that brings us towards a synthesis, doesn't it?
Yeah.
We've tracked this path from finding diamonds locally, building internal discipline and resilience, facing failure.
All the way to mastering external influence through communication, whether that's for personal gain or for challenging injustice.
It seems true effectiveness, maybe what Covey calls maturity, is about balancing that internal work with external action. Balancing courage, getting things done with consideration, thinking about the long-term impact on everyone involved.
Right. We have to accept failure, focus on what we can control our circle of influence, and, maybe most importantly, keep the promises we make to ourselves. That builds the foundation.
But there's maybe one final layer here. Does the journey end with personal success and local influence?
That's a deep question. Csikszentmihalyi, the psychologist known for his work on flow, talked about stages of purpose.
He noted that most people don't really move beyond self-interest or maybe the welfare of their immediate family. They get ensconced comfortably there.
Fewer reach a stage of reflective individualism, and only a precious few, he says, emerge to forge a real unity with universal values. They connect their purpose to something much bigger than themselves.
Like Malcolm X, after his travels, realizing the struggle wasn't just American civil rights, but a global human rights issue affecting Black people everywhere.
Exactly. He saw the need for a collective, international perspective, moving beyond purely local concerns.
Or Nelson Mandela, dedicating his life to fighting the systemic injustice of apartheid, focusing on things like the past laws that destroyed families, huge systemic issues.
These figures clearly moved beyond personal ambition to tackle massive, universal problems.
So it leaves us with this provocative thought to consider. If achieving, let's say, a very good life ultimately involves moving beyond just looking after yourself and your own towards connecting with those universal values.
Does the kind of intense, local focus championed by Conwell digging for diamonds in your own backyard, does that inherently limit your ability to see and act on global suffering or systemic injustice? Does it keep your focus too narrow?
Or is mastering that local sphere, developing that discipline, that ability to create value and influence where you stand, is that the necessary training ground? Is that precisely what equips you eventually to take on the bigger global challenges described by people like Mandela or Douglas?
Does the path to universal values run through the mastery of your own acres of diamonds, or does it require looking up from them much sooner?
A profound question indeed. Something for you to mull over as you think about your own influence and perhaps the diamonds you might be sitting on right now.
Thank you for joining us for this deep dive.